be 7 at the end of item number 6. Declarations of interest? No. Minutes of the COVID-19 Response Committee 28th to the 5th. Any alterations or additions there? A mover that we take these as read. Councillor Lovett, Councillor Rawlinson. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Next item is number 5.
There's a recommendation.
Is it council? Yeah, recommendation to council. Yep, that'll go to council, that recommendation. Item number 5, revenue and financing policy, stock water rate. And Mr. Guthrie and Rachel, who's leading? Andrew. Thank you. Anything further to add to your report? Nope. Shall we go to questions? Councillor Lovett.
I was just thinking, before we set charges and stuff, I would, as a landowner, and we have a stock water race running on our road down on the road reserve, we don't use it, and I'm asking, why should we pay for the privilege of having that running down the road reserve past our property, and we often clean part of this race ourselves because of the weed gather up, and I sort of don't think that's fair to the landowners when, you know, it's fine if it's running through your property, but a council water race running past it, I don't think we should be paying for the kilometres that, you know, that's running past.
Through the chair, the rationale for who pays has been long established. I certainly long before my time, it was probably set aside maybe back in the county council days. The service does need to be recovered in some way, and if there are elements of that service that would be excluded, then other people have to pay for that. So it's up to council how that is cut up.
This recommendation today is going out for consultation, isn't it? Yep. So it's not a final, it's just us moving through the process. So, yeah. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My question is, have we got a handle on exactly how many K of stock water races we've got that are operational at the moment? How many K are mains and sub-mains that the council cleans annually or whenever? And have we got a handle on exactly how many people are paying for stock water races? We've done surveys for the last 11 years on and off since I've been on the council, and we always seem to end up without a final count. Have we got an answer to those questions that are definitely know exactly where we are?
I think through the chair, so the GIS is probably our best source of information now. I couldn't give you an assurance that it's 100% accurate right at this moment, because there's a lot of things happening every day. There's alterations occurring, and that information has to come through the system and then be the GIS has to be updated. I think that rating database, as indicated in the report, there are some concerns about the validity of that data. And certainly some of the models or some of the options around where we could head as a method of rating would be reliant on cleaning that data up, and one of them also looks to be using the GIS as the source of truth.
Angus will have to go off if you go supplementary. Just put your button off, Angus, and then go on again.
A supplementary. How can we make a decision if you don't know exactly how many people are paying and what they're paying, and if we haven't got the database right, how can we make a decision? We're making it half by blind, aren't we?
Well, I think at any given time, you're going to be making decisions on the best data available. And I can assure you, you've got the best data available at the moment on the GIS.
Angus?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got at least a couple of questions, if that's all right. First one is just to establish exactly what Mr Guthrie said. I believe he said it's been a long established practice who paid. It was a long time ago it was established who pay. Have I got that right?
To the best of my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. My question is to all councillors, does that mean that this council cannot change policy at any time on anything, including stock water race and who pays? I thought we were the governing body, that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, I don't think you're right. We do get to change. That is our role.
We can get to change?
Yes.
Thank you. I think that's a good policy.
Good.
The other one I have when it comes to fairity, does fairity mean fair and just and fair to everyone that's involved in an activity? For example, the flowing downstream, the flowing downhill of a stock water race. Because if it does mean that, those that actually want it should actually pay, and those that don't want it maybe should get paid, and that discussion and option is not here in this report. So how can I go about discussing that if I wish to?
If he wished, how would he wish to do that?
Well, the opportunity is now. If the report's in front of us, as council considers that report and the options that are outlined, if there are other options that council would like explored to complete the report, then that's the opportunities right now to convince council that that's what we should do.
Angus?
Okay, Mr Mayor, I'll put it on the table for discussion as an option to be considered by council. I can't make comment, but I can only ask questions, and I'm asking if that can be put on the table for discussion when we actually discuss and debate this topic. Because we're question time now, aren't we?
A question time at the moment, yeah. Okay, so you're pre-warning that you have a something coming. That's fine. I just have one question before I go to Councillor Wilson, and it's the townships, the little townships which have water races running through them. I'm thinking of the Mount Somers, the Mayfield, the Methven, and Chertsey and Fetton. They have water races going through them, but the small sections. Would they be exempted from this? Because they're generally hooked up to town water, and it's just a pathway through their properties.
Yeah, my understanding is a lot of those township properties don't actually incur the rate, even the minimum charge currently. And again, long established, it was about giving them access to something that would take the pressure off the piped schemes.
Yep. Councillor Wilson?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Two questions. That question you've just answered, why should people in small townships be exempt when the water race flows through their property, and if you had 200 acres, it flows through your property, you don't use it, you pay? It's completely illogical. The other question is, if we did go to the idea floated by Councillor Mackay, and people that didn't want it were paid for it to travel through, would it mean that people use the water, it would be in tens of thousands of dollars per property, because there's so few people on a long race that actually use it? They had to pay for the whole race the whole way. It would be a day of reckoning for the whole water race system, would it not?
In answer to the first question, we're in your hands. So if the council had a view that everybody should pay, even those on small sections in townships, then that's what we would implement. In terms of the second question, I haven't done any modelling on that suggestion. I wouldn't hazard a guess as to what that might do to the rate to the people that would still require it. Yeah, a lot of work to do to get that answer.
Councillor Brown?
A couple of things, if I can. I think this is something that should be coming up in the LTP next year. We start discussing the water races, if we want to have them or not. And it's not the point here, what we're talking for. worth looking at. My next thing would be, if we start doing this, I'm living in rural, just out of town, but why do I pay a lot of money if the roads I'm not using? I mean, if I don't use all the roads in this district, so do I get a percentage off as well because I only use the main highway? Or, I mean, we start pulling things apart because we like it or we don't like it, but we have to be fair. Everyone pays for something, and if we can, equal.
You have to be fair. Councillor Flood?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Newbie question. Do we actually have a policy on the closing of stock water races? And what does that policy say?
Mr Guthrie, it's probably a lengthy policy, but can you just summarise it, or is that a wee bit different?
Well, effectively, the policy gives us the structure of how we go about closing or assessing closures for water races. It takes in a whole host of factors in that decision making.
Just one further comment, thank you, Mr Mayor. On a background paper, I note that the view that water races are inefficient, as about 4% of the water going into the race scheme is actually used as stock drinking water, and 5% is used for domestic use. The rest is basically lost to infiltration. On environmental grounds alone, we should be closing the damn things ASAP.
Councillor Rawlinson?
Thank you. Regarding surveys, I know there's been many a survey done, and Councillor Wilson's question answered part of it, but in today's world, and particularly with the lifestyle block holders, my question would be, do they want it, do they need it, do they use it? With most of the new houses going on new lifestyle blocks, they'll have a new well put down and they won't want water races anyway. And if a carrier race is running through their property, as it does on some of the farms, where's the fairity if they have to pay whatever fee we set just for a race that cuts through the corner of their property? And perhaps Councillor Mackay's question or proposal will help us address that.
In terms of what's fair, or how the policy would be structured, again, we're in your hands. Lifestyle blocks, certainly the ones that have existing races, tend to utilise them for other purposes other than stock. Quite a few of them are landscaped, and they are looking for different amenity benefits other than stock water. So I think it gets back to the question, what are we trying to do? My understanding of the intent when we were requested to look at this was about trying to ensure that we are encouraging people to find alternatives to the network, and using the minimum charge as effectively a lever to pull in order to encourage people thinking along those lines.
Yeah, Mr Guthrie, I think it's dead right. The minimum charge is very low, and if people have two sources of water, they don't want to remove the one that is very, very cheap, even if they don't use it, but may want to in the future as a backup source, because it is so cheap. It's a cheap insurance policy. Councillor Lovett, then we might move to the recommendation.
Okay, I was just going to ask, with the fencing laws now, all waterways need fencing. These water races will need to be fenced. And I don't know whether the lifestyle block people have done it, but out there, the landowners are going to need some certainty with their closing of water races, because fencing is an expensive issue. We need to have some timelines, do we not? Going down the line, do you fence, do you not? And it all ties into this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about the fencing criteria and how it applies to water races. Certainly it applies to other waterways. But yeah, we haven't had any direction on that at this point.
I think the government uses it's a metre wide or stride wide and a gumboot deep, but it needs, if it hits that criteria, it needs to be have stock exclusion. I think that's the criteria they use, so our water races wouldn't necessarily meet that in most cases, I wouldn't think. Councillor Brown?
I'm quite happy to move a motion, if I can, or just go to one of the recommendations.
Yep.
Go from there. I would be looking at options 2A, B, C or D. It will take a couple of years to get this all right, so I don't want to jump to the highest one, but I think that option gives us a chance to feel if people want to have the water or not, by slightly bringing the lowest prices up and top prices slightly down. So that would be the point I like to start, and I would go order 2A or 2B.
You'll need to choose one.
I take 2A.
Which is a minimum length of 500 metres and a minimum charge of 255.
Correct.
Yep. So 2A. Councillor Brown has moved that. Is there a seconder for that? Lapses for the lack of a seconder. We'll look for another recommendation. Councillor, Lane, if you put your light off.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Rawlinson.
I would recommend, my recommendation would be that we went with option B with a minimum charge of $431.06.
It's option 2B.
2B, yes.
You'll move that. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mackay, you've got light on. Are you seconding or just no?
Where are we going?
Option 2B is going to lapse for lack of a seconder. Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Seeing there's a motion be moved already.
There hasn't been.
There hasn't been. Okay. Okay. So I move that the council receives the report.
Can I take these in?
There's been no motion to take them in bits, so I'm just going to go for the whole hog and see what happens.
Okay.
If that's
Righto.
all right. Unless you advise me otherwise.
No, let's take them as one piece.
Okay. That council removes the charge for stock water services and no, 2's out.
So you do want to take them in bits.
Yeah, and we, council receives the report that council supports 2B. Sorry? Council supports 2B, which increases the minimum charge paid to the 431 and uses the rate. Which one's that? And I have a number 4.
There you go. Order.
I have at number 4 that can be discussed in the public, and that is that the stock water race system be closed. There's number 4. So, talking to that, to try and get someone to second it, what I'm saying is that we work out the options that if it's going to stay, and we also put the option in for consultation purposes that the race be closed, the race system be closed.
Now just be clear, you haven't moved number 2, which is council removes the charge for stock water services and requires those properties paying for the service to pay the minimum charge. Have you moved that one as well?
Yeah, I'll move that.
You have.
Yep.
1, 2, 3 and a 4.
Yeah, and the 4.
And the 4 is
that stock water race system be closed.
right.
That's so we can have some consultation.
Yep. This would override a policy. You speak to it, Angus.
Sorry?
You speak to it.
Okay, yes, we do have a stock water race policy, but it's very difficult under that policy to actually
Possibly. Angus, I
close
think
the whole
we'll just get a seconder first, then you
Right,
then
okay.
speak to the motion. Councillor Lethem, you get your light on. Is it seconding?
No, I wanted to move an amendment if
Okay.
they've got a second.
So yes, Councillor Rawlinson, I love it. You're seconding? Second it. Now, Angus, you speak to the motion.
So my answering the question or speaking to the motion?
What was the question?
The question was, we have stock water policy, can't we?
No, you're speaking to the motion. Roger, just turn yours off.
I'll wait.
Right, We've got a mover and a second up for the floor. Now in debate. Right. Okay, number one is as it is. Number two, as it is. Number three is option 2B. And number four is that the stock water race system be closed. Now, this is all going out for consultation, so we're not closing as of today. This is going out for a consultation. Happy with that? You've got the motions, all four parts. Councillor Latham?
Can I move an amendment to that?
Yes.
I can. I would like to move then that we go for option 3, which is $600 base fee and 16 cents per metre after that.
So the amendment.
And the minimum area, the minimum length will be 1,000 metres.
Yeah. So leaving the other three
Yeah.
options, which
Yeah.
is 1, 2, 3 you're altering, and 4 is the new one you're leaving in as well.
No, I just wanted to move that the policy be the minimum area, minimum length be 1,000 metres, the rate per metre be 16.65 cents, and with a minimum charge of $600. Full stop, end of story.
Yeah, so 4 is not in it.
No.
Right, thank you. Give a seconder for that amendment.
Yeah.
Carolyn?
If I may just speak to that
to
very
it.
briefly,
Yep.
Mr Mayor, I think it's clean, it's concise, and it will make some landowners really seriously consider whether they need their water race, because as some people have said, they do have other sources, they've got wells on their properties, and it may aid us in tidying up the whole water race system, which we've inherited from many, many years, and it's becoming a bit cumbersome. So that's the reason I make that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thanks, Mr Chairman. 616 cents, did you say?
No, 16.65.
Option 3 on page.
Yeah, second one.
We're discussing the amendment. I'm in favour of the amendment. I'm not in favour of the motion. We've got a strategic water, a stock water committee working with irrigation schemes to close the water races. That's the aim, and to liaise with the irrigation companies. So to come out at this stage and say we're going to close them full stop, it's, we've got to have a reason or a substitute. You can't just say your water races are gone, boys, sorry. So I'm opposed, I support the amendment, but I'm opposed to the motion, especially number 4 of the original motion.
Councillor Cameron?
Stuart, just as a point of clarification, number 4 in the amendment was not in there. The amendment, yeah. So you support the amendment?
The amendment, yes.
I also support the amendment, and note that we have a surface water strategy which is dealing with the race closures and moving forward. So I believe the race closure option is looked at in the surface water strategy, which we have and is being worked on. Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, just stand to be corrected a bit here. I certainly support Councillor Letham's amendment, but we are still dealing with the original motion as put forward by Councillor Mackay, which has number 4 in there. So therefore, how do we deal with that?
If we get the amendment passed, then that will become there's a substantive motion. So the first motion will be moved to one side. I understand if I've got it right.
Yes, just to be really clear, the amendment is quite clearly not including the original motion's point 4. That's part of the amendment. So it's a different option and not point 4. That's the amendment.
Any further discussion? Angus, right of reply? No, you don't get a right of reply on this, sorry. Not yet.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to remind people of one or two things. The roads and where the roads run, as my understanding is, they're all on road reserve, where most of the water races run. They're actually on private land owned by private individuals who actually struggle to actually use the water races along the majority of the length. The reason is because of the watering bays that have to be put in if you've got cattle or pigs, and most of them have to be fenced off under the new government regulations, and we have a big expense coming for the difficulty of putting in fish screens on these water races. So I'm saying let's clean the whole thing up. Even if Councillor Wilson's committee that is doing great work arrives at a decision, because of the strategic nature of the water races, I believe it will still have to go out for public consultation. So I'm suggesting that we have the public consultation earlier than later. It may actually strengthen Councillor Wilson's arm if he has the opinion of the majority of ratepayers in Ashburton District. The small owners, small landowners, I think every one of them that I've visited over time that on a water race problem actually explained to me that they have a well on their property. I don't think I've been to one that doesn't have a well. So it really struggles, and that's why I asked about the fairity earlier on, why someone that receives weeds via their water race system, they have to plant it up under the new regulations, they have to clean it, they have to pay rates on it, why they have to go through all that rigmarole for people to have a lifestyle pond or a lifestyle water race at the corner of the farm for the horse and the cow. I rest my case, but the main thing I would like to see is district-wide consultation on it, and I think this is the time to do it.
Thank you. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. So the consultation that Councillor Mackay's mentioned, how do we, if the motion doesn't pass today, but we want to look at it, can it go through to the LTP, or is that something the surface water strategy is I think it needs to be addressed, but I don't think it needs to be in this recommendation today. I think it needs to be addressed going forward. But I'm just wondering how that would work.
And what you're wanting to address is the closure of the water race system, and the surface water strategy may do that or may not.
One of the advantages of the advisory group work that is ongoing that Councillor Wilson has referred to is it is, of course, considering an alternative, and that is utilising the irrigation company's piped networks to continue to distribute water around the district. One of the matters that we would have to turn our mind to in relation to immediate consultation, which I'm only assuming as part of the motion, would be we'd have to think very carefully what we're consulting on in relation to alternative options for ratepayers, and just asking the question, do you want them closed, is not an easy simple. It's a simple question in this room. It's not an easy matter to consult on in that form, and so we would have to give some quite careful consideration to what the consultation actually was and how we were asking that question. We of course will do that if the motion passes, but one of the advantages of the advisory network work, which flowed out of the surface water strategy that Council adopted, was that we were examining alternative ways of distributing water via the irrigation companies' networks, and that would seem that if that work can be brought to a close in good time, then there is an alternative water distribution system that we can then consult on. So I think to my mind, we're heading to consultation in the fullness of time. It's whether you go now or whether we let some existing work conclude before we would go out.
Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, just a point of order. Should we not be still discussing the amendment and putting that to the motion before we get back to point 4?
Probably should. Correct. Councillor Wilson, discussing the amendment, debating the amendment.
Yes, it is, but it's also explanation that the Deputy Mayor brought up. The Strategic Water Committee is not just me and the councillors. We've got ECAN there, we've got Fish and Game, we've got irrigation companies, we're doing ecological reports on the stock water system, whether there's parts of it need to be kept for ecological biodiversity, and it's not just a committee that we're going to close it, bang. It's to come back to council with a whole package that this is what can be done, and ECAN are on board and the ecologists are on board, so that it'll be an overall package to solve the whole question.
Councillor Latham, need a right of reply?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Really, just to reinforce what I said to start with, I think option 3 is clean, it's concise, and landowners, I'm sure, will decide whether they wish to continue with the present system. It is an old system, having used it myself. So, yeah, I just urge you to give it serious consideration.
Okay, I'll put the amendment. I am in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Passed. The amendment now becomes the motion. I'll now put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Against, recorded. Thank you. Councillor Mackay. Okay. Item number 6. Thank you for that. Item number 6 is Ashton Beach Enhancement Project. And Ms Mosley is here. And Bert. Is there anything further you wish to add to the report? Or should we go to questions?
Firstly, okay, so thank you very much for letting us come here today to give you an update and a summary of where we've got with regards to the Ashton Beach Enhancement Project. It's fair to say that this project has gained some momentum and has snowballed somewhat. Started a relatively simple project where we asked the community about their needs and requests about where we would fence down that area to ensure a safer area to ride, but also help from a biodiversity perspective. So that was the intentions through the community engagement process, which included a on-site sort of field trip meeting, and option 3 came into the mix, and that was, we kind of understand your points of wanting to fence off the dangerous areas, and we understand that you want to have the areas of biodiversity saved also, but can't we just ride over there? And it was literally pointing to an unused part of Ocean Farm adjacent to the area where people currently ride. This area is of undulating terrain, and it also provides access to the flat areas of where people also ride down, and I'll show you on the map shortly. So that was seen kind of as a triple win or a quadruple win from a health and safety, biodiversity, motorbike riders perspective, and also with community support and the partnership approach, we thought we could get a really good asset of an alternative motorbike riding area down in Ashton Beach, as the Trevors Road area does have some complaints from time to time. We kept digging and we kept finding more information out, and this is where the project has snowballed in terms of cost and also obviously an additional level of service. In the unused portion of land, we have found 2 indigenous flora, the silver tussock and the Mullumbeckia shrub, so fencing and the track formation would need to be account for those areas and those sightings, so which we believe is possible. The Mullumbeckia shrub is threatened nationally vulnerable, so it is of significance. And also we have the southern grass skink, which is at risk and declining, and this habitat is also favourable to that species. So we have biodiversity, and we also have legal obligations with regards to developing this area. There are some really positive wins if we do embark upon that, but there is some costs associated with it, and hence we're putting it to council to say whether or not that is worth pursuing, or we leave it as we went out with community feedback and decide on the fencing of option 1, which eliminates the riding on the at-risk portion and also fences the biodiversity areas. So, the team in terms of has been in a cross-council project, people from People with Capability, Open Spaces, Strategy and Policy, our legal team, and also finance. So lots of people involved, and it has been an interesting experience, one that I never quite thought that I'd be involved in, but enjoyable. So I'll just hopefully bring this up. Thank you very, very much. So I guess on the green areas shaded here, that's the area of biodiversity that we've found. Clearly the road in the middle has just been shown as biodiversity for the purpose of simplicity, so you can exclude that. And the red areas are the areas of risk from a health and safety perspective, with the solid red areas being the initially defined areas. So that's why we are talking about this. And then I guess with regards to the different fencing lines, I just want to focus on the areas where people will be able to ride. So on option 1, which fences off the entire donga, people will be able to ride on this flat area here. That blue line or aqua line, that's the proposed ECAN fencing. So when that happens in 2024, obviously riding over here will be curtailed somewhat due to ECAN's project. With regards to us, this is the area under option 1, which is completely flat, where people could ride, and obviously over that land also at this point in time. Option 2 allows for riding on the flat, where we've just discussed, but also a portion of this donga area in here. So that's option 2. This area here is the bit of risk, and it's a bit of health and safety risk that we are trying to eliminate, hence it's our least preferred option. Option 3 provides for riding on the flats like we've discussed in all other 3 options. The intention was to have an entranceway through into this portion of ocean farmland that is unused, and by doing so it meant that the access route to the undulating area was not via that road, because at the moment there has been some incidences apparently of cars coming down here at relative speed and motorbike riders sort of coming off and on that road just as part of the track. So by having the access point through here, they can park vehicles, some of the family potentially could ride on the flats, other people can ride, more advanced riders can ride in this area here. We have put a dotted line here, and all these lines are very indicative of fencing locations because it will depend, but up that top corner is where the main area of flora has been found, the silver tussocks and the Mullenbecker, so we want to ensure that that is not part of the riding area. And potentially the motorbike riders, when we saw them on site, were not saying that they needed the whole site, so we thought, well, maybe this is a good place to enhance the the skinks habitat, so that there could be a portion that it can be shared. So that's kind of the intention, but it has snowballed. We're happy to stop, but at the same time there is community interest, and yeah, it's close to being a win for all parties, but yeah, there's more resource required if that is the intention of council.
Thank you, Sarah. Open for questions. Let's have a couple. Going back many years, the gun club was proposed to go down there somewhere, and probably Mr. Guthrie would know where. Where would that propose, which it never happened, but where would it be? Either Sarah or Andrew?
Was it in there?
Chairman.
The gun range,
Not changed.
where the blue hay bales
Ah,
are, the gun range was going to be along there.
and it was going to shoot up that way, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Towards the Haggett Tree settlement, and they thought that wasn't
So it's
wise.
nowhere on this land?
No, it's
Well, yeah,
adjacent to it,
adjacent,
but
yeah.
divided by that black fence, which is an existing fence line. So those hay bales are not there presently, but that's kind of the gun area was equivalent.
Okay, that's fine. So was the second question was what is those, and that's the silage bales, I presume. They store them there. And if we change the irrigation system on the ocean farm to say a centre pivot, has anyone done any work on whether it would encroach over this area if we decided to change?
The only area that potentially would be down here, because this area is flat. Before you get that sort of spine is I'm going to say bouldery bluffs. So there's no central pivot that would like going up and over that. So a portion of that could get irrigated potentially because it is flat.
Yeah. So we just don't want to limit ourselves in the future if we went to a different system of irrigation of the effluent down there. Yeah.
Yes, I suspect that the existing sort of rights or existing land use would still come into play of turning a non-irrigated portion of land into irrigated, but that would be something that, the resource consenting team would advise of.
Yeah, sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not.
As we are finding out.
Yeah. Councillor Flynn, question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With what is proposed, does that come into conflict with any possible changes that could be made by ECAN and also central government as far as coastlines, waterways and that sort of thing is concerned?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of any. I have been in consultation with ECAN about what we're proposing here, or the various options, and they're on board with that. So they, at a staff level, they know what's going on.
Councillor Lovett.
Probably got several questions here, but first of all, we're just wanting to know where the access is for people going to the river, like the river run and stuff. And I know the blue line ECAN's proposing, and probably the bottom part of ours, I have seen the sea come in over that, especially the Waihini storm. And if the river's in flood, those old buildings down the bottom have all been underwater down here. And I'm just wondering about the cost of all the fencing and stuff. Who's going to repair it and clean up the mess when the river and the sea does come in? And look, it's been a wilderness for years. People ride this quite frequently. And if we're going to ban people, they're going to cut the fences. And that's what my concern is. If we spend a lot of money down here, people have to go somewhere for recreation. They like the dongers.
Councillor Lovett, have you got a question on that?
Yeah.
Before we debate it?
Yeah, just the cost of all the fencing and this if it gets flooded out. And is there a health and safety risk, really?
Yes, there is a health and safety risk. Yes, people have been using it for a long time. We would not know of the number of injuries that have occurred down there, but we also as a council are unable to plead ignorance or pretend we don't know the information with the assessments that have occurred. So we do need to either mitigate the risk or acknowledge that we won't be. And that liability rests at this table.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Sarah. I accept we have to acknowledge the risk is there. I mean, we can't pretend it's not there. But my point is my question is the shrub, the tussock and the skink, are they in the existing area already, like in the biking area now?
Yes.
So can we not use, we're going to save those tussock and skink and shrub, can we not use them to mitigate the other tussock and skink and shrub?
There is definitely an element of trade, and part of the lizard management plan looks at what values and areas you're trading with. The value that this area along there has is its position to the sun, and skinks like the sun, as opposed to this area is more in the shade just due to its topography. So they're not seen as like with like,
Sure.
but it does contribute
There is some
towards
sort of acknowledgement that we are saving some skink to put
Yes.
others at risk type of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. And my next question is, how much land, am I allowed to supplement question? Thank you. How much land does, when I look at your scale, it doesn't look particularly a lot, you know, like 80 metres looks about on the scale in the bottom of the slide. How much land is actually involved in that? Like how many metres of fencing are you going to be doing?
The fencing in total, I'm not actually sure if we had the exact meterage, but the fencing is kind of almost the small part of the cost. It's 12 to 15,000 on whatever option we choose.
Sure. Yeah.
Option 3 obviously does have additional fencing just because we're then trying to protect particular areas. But that was seen as quite minor compared with the other things that have
Ongoing
since
costs
followed.
and things like that, yeah. So we're looking like 30 hectares or 50 hectares or 300 hectares or? It's just that I don't think that scales.
I'd make a rough guess at a couple of hectares.
Oh, is that all?
0 to 5 hectares, yeah, something in that range. We haven't actually calculated it out.
So it's not a lot. Thank you.
Angus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Where the words Department of Conservation are written, and there's just above that on the map, there's a orange line and a purple line. Is that bottom orange and purple line in the coastal hazard area?
I don't know.
That portion down there that you're referring to, that is the boundary of Ocean Farm land. So this donga is in part of the Ocean Farm title.
Can I ask my question again? And I'll rephrase it to the officer. No matter who owns the land or controls the land, is that bottom bit of fencing in the coastal hazard management zone?
I personally wouldn't be able to answer that, but I suspect if looking at where ECAN are proposing their fence, we're in an equal par to that, so I'm unsure.
Okay. If I can ask supplementary?
Yep.
If we go to option 1, where will the riding and driving self-taught lessons be held in this district? In other words, which bits of council land will they go to next?
On the flat portion of land that will remain available under all options.
Where there's no, if I may, so they'll go to the flat portion where there's no hills, no up and downness, to teach themselves how to control vehicles.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The option you like would be 1, 2 and 3. Is that correct? Option 1, 2 and 3. The yellow line, so involving the bike club, is that the option you prefer?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question? I lost it at the start.
Sorry.
No, that's all commented on options.
Yeah. But I mean, if you go to the top one on page, what I'm looking at, it doesn't want to scroll. Is it 13? You've got option 3 fund sources are, and it's the Ashton Beach motorbike track projects, go ask for money, etc., etc. So basically, my question would be, and on the bottom it says underwritten by council, the financial, underwriting the whole project. How much will that be?
We're estimating at this point that it could be underwritten by 20,000. However, that is a little unknown at this stage because depending on the outcomes of the lizard management plan that needs to occur in sort of October when it's a wee bit warmer, that will depend whether you're involving lizard or skink salvage, trapping and removing them and putting them to a different location. That's kind of a last resort, and I don't think that's where we will need to head, but I'm just flagging that is an unknown. So what we're saying is we believe with external funding, which for a biodiversity project such as this, we believe we would be able to get that money, but we need to do some work up front to then enable the funding to be applied for, and we need some support. If we were unfortunate and did not receive any funding from external sources, then clearly all the costs would lay at council. So that's where
And that's $20,000, including the fencing.
the fencing.
Is that separate? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All good. Councillor Wilson?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. How exciting if you go down there on your trail bike and you're told you can ride around there in that flat area, go for your life. Honestly, what sort of kids are we bringing up that they can't go up a hill? My question is, there's a huge big area taken over by ECAN, the conservation area. Are the skinks in there? Obviously they are. The tiny little bit, skinks are a common variety. I see a cat in Birdling's flat ate 16 the other day. I mean, we had them on the farm at Hines. It's not as if they're a rare thing. I'll have to go. Is this flat here, or is that mountainous there? Undulated.
Yeah.
It's not real steep like it is here.
It doesn't have the risks associated with that, but when we had the experts from the motorbike club down there, they said they wouldn't be riding there. They said that we can form a track that would be interesting, have excitement and various levels of ability in the new proposed area, she says, as his pointer runs out. In there, because it's got some hills, and it's in a basin as well, so you've got a hill but you've got a basin. So it is a shame that during lockdown we had planned to take councillors down there as part of the bus trip, so that you would see it firsthand, but clearly that didn't occur.
So the more exciting, challenging track is option 3.
The undulating area that's in addition to the flat riding area is provided for in option 3. It will not be to the level that currently the riders that use the donga is at, but that's the area that we don't believe is safe, nor should we provide that area to be used as a council.
Well, supplementary, Mr Mayor. The bit that's obviously used on the right under the turquoise colour, you can see tracks there. Are they motorbike tracks?
Yes.
Is that flat or is that hilly?
Oh, this is all flat. This is all flat. So people can all ride there.
Councillor Latham?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just pondering, how did all this come about? I see in the summary you said, Council has become aware of serious health and safety issues. Now, I haven't heard of any, but what are they? Why all of a sudden are we concerned about some motorcyclists having a great time down on the Ashton Beach area? And I lean towards preserving endangered species and biodiversity, but do we really need to spend all this money just to do all this? What prompted it? Like what happened that set it all in motion?
It was prompted by health and safety, that area in particular, and the members of the Audit and Risk Committee have had multiple reports prior talking about the risks associated. This bit here at the moment has a temporary sort of fence to try and block the danger. It's eroding down that side. It's turned into a shingle scree. It's eroding, it's a steep side, and there's no way that if you drove up there, it's a very, very thin before you're driving down the other side. So the degree of risk is high, especially if you had not used that area before. There's huge risk involved. It's a steep-sided peninsula.
Supplementary, so if something went wrong there, what would our liability be? Because people are going to ride motorbikes in all sorts of places. I know this is on council land, but are we not just jumping at shadows and being overcautious? Kids have been doing that for 100 years, not on motorbikes, but of course.
It is a point of view that I anticipated to receive today. It is not my personal point of view with regards to the risks associated, but the liability and the risk of this area and enabling it to happen does not rest with me. So it rests with the councillors at the elected table. So it is your choice how you wish to deal with this concern. We can't unlearn it. We won't. We know it's here, and we've had experts saying that it is at risk. If you think of Hackett Tree, for example, the cliffs and the bluff areas down there, I suspect will know that there's fencing around that purely so people don't drive off it. You know, we do put fencing in places to reduce risk. This is an area where we suggest we do the same.
Thank you.
Councillor Rawlinson?
Okay. Two questions. One around the health and safety. So what is to stop council putting a big sign up down there absolving themselves of, you know, liability, just like farmers have to on their farm, as regarding the people who go and ride there? And I just wanted to clarify a couple of things on the map, if I may.
Okay.
So Sarah, what option would we be voting for if we have all of this and that access into here?
Option 3.
And is there a chance to include just this piece here?
No. Because that is the area at risk. It would be, we wouldn't encourage that purely because you're just providing more land, but still having the risk.
I mean, that, I know, like, you can see the track, but I know personally how much fun the kids have riding on this piece here. You get kids from 11 years to about 16 turning around in here having a ball. And I know you say there's risk, but I agree with Roger that you've got to let them have fun somewhere. So,
and hence the tracks, the motorbike club, you know, looked at the undulating bit of land, and they were happy with an area in there that they can form tracks that provide that diversity and that mix of mixed levels of riding.
so that was my third question you've answered. Thank you.
Did you get your first question answered?
In which part?
Option 3.
About it, just putting a sign up.
You got it.
Oh, sorry, the signage. You can always put up signs, they can always be taken down. A sign itself is not, it's a small, I guess, mitigation measure. It would not be deemed sufficient if that was all that council did and a fatality happened.
Councillor Cameron?
Thank you.
Quick question, Sarah, how many people use the donga around there for riding? Like 100 a week or 500 a month or?
It's hard to know. There's some local people who live locally and just drive from their farms down there on a regular basis because of that. In the weekends, there would be people who put bikes on trailers and head down into that area. It isn't complete estimate. I'd probably be saying, I don't know, 200 a month or something. But yeah, it would be seasonal, I suspect also.
Thank you.
Councillor Mackay?
Can I make a comment, please?
Yep.
Mr Mayor, I'm the first to admit that I was lax and didn't attend the public day that the staff run down there, and I wish to apologise to staff for not being a member of the public when you had an open day. But I don't think anyone else from here at this table went either. So, we have a conundrum of health and safety, we have a conundrum where to put the fences, and on the questions being asked, I'm going to move a procedural motion and chance my arm, Mr Mayor, if I can, if I'm allowed to.
You do have one more question.
Okay.
If we might go to that question and come back to you. Councillor Brown? Just turn off your microphone, Angus.
Sarah, option 3, where are the fences going? I'm completely confused with all the colours in there. So just, where are the fences? If it is all open spaces, I'm not too worried, but if we get little fences all over the place.
Option 3 has the yellow fence.
Yep,
It has the purple fence.
all the way around
So you
there.
can't ride in there.
Okay, yep.
And it will probably have a fence approximately around here. So option 3 allows you to ride in the undulating hill area and here.
And the flat.
Sarah, just push your button, please.
Sorry. Option 3 allows you to ride in the undulating area here and entrance and exit via there into the flat area where people can park as well, their vehicles.
Is there a question there, Councillor Lovett?
With option 3, would the motorbike park people be able to have the piece, this piece, and use it under supervision on if they have open days? Because we've got to have an area for the older kids which is more experienced, and all these kids that's down there now, you know, they're going to cut the fence and go in there, but if it was managed under the motorbike club, they would probably respect it.
Through the chair,
It's not that bad to ride.
well, I guess advice we've received to date is contrary to that opinion. But with mitigation measures and having the motorbike club on board is a huge advantage to council, and hence why we feel confident even suggesting using the undulating area by having their input. So they are by far more expert, and they have the health and safety plans to do with their Trevors Road Park, and they know this field of expertise completely. So with them on board, there are alternatives, but it would definitely not be a suggestion or something that I'd be guaranteeing at this point.
Okay, Angus, continue.
Yeah.
Diane, turn off, please.
I move that the Ashton Beach Enhancement Project lie on the table until a site visit has been achieved.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Floon, seconded. I'll put the motion, I'll just put the motion. All those in favour, or did you want to speak to that first as to why you wanted to lie on the table? Yeah.
I've just got the opinion, Mr Mayor, that a site visit for this piece, I know we should be able to make a decision up, and we should have all independently gone down and had a look, but I think a collective site visit would actually solve a lot of the questions that have been asked here and give us the solution why we were standing on the bank. Because I think we're not going to get a decision that's going to satisfy everyone. That's why I'm giving the councillors and you the option of sitting on this until we've had a site visit.
So that's the recommendation that lies on the table until after a site visit. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? No. Carried. Matter lies on the table, so we'll organise the site visit within the next wee while, short term.
Given the comments we've heard around health and safety, that site visit will be very soon. Yeah.
Thank you. So the last item I had was the extraordinary business. Have we had any, we can have that item?
No.
We can't.
Well, you can, but
Can we uplift that? Well, so we'll remove the item of extraordinary business, the uplifting of that. We still need further information from NZTA. So it will come back as soon as it can. So that takes us to the end of the open part of the meeting. And business transacted with public excluded. I'll move that we move into committee. Carried.
Second.
Liz, carried. Thank you, staff, members of the media. We won't be in committee for very long at all, because there's, just wait for everyone.